I will say this. They are the only team anyone is talking about as a seller. Hello and welcome to the Athletic NBA Show. It's Friday. I'm Dave DeFore, and that means it's Nerder. She wrote, joining me as they do each and every week, my main man, Seth Partnow. What's up, Seth?
How you doing, Dave?
Not too bad. Not too bad. Sun is shining out here in LA. And my other guy, Mo DeKeel. What's up, Mo?
It's shining, Dave, but it's still cold.
It is chilly. Nobody told me
it's
it dropped below 60 in
it's
California.
It's like really, really, really cold. And I don't know, like it's uncomfortable, Dave. I mean, Seth, you might not understand, but like it's a tough situation to deal with. I'm layered up.
Oh man, I love to live in California. So nice. Guys, I want to jump right in because we are 1 week out from the trade deadline. We got a lot to get to today, but we got to jump to our favorite things first. And guys, after 265 days, the man is back. Danny Green made his season debut for the Memphis Grizzlies last night. And we're not going to talk about what happened on the court because it doesn't matter. What matters is the world is back on the right track. Danny Green's out there running around, bow-legged, ultra efficient, jogging, just making stuff happen. He shot a couple air balls, but hey, man, this guy just came back from a major injury at an old age, and he's back.
Listeners, bet your ass if Danny Green went 4 or 5 from 3 or
we'd only be
like
talking
that,
about that.
It would be a whole different way he would have entered into this conversation. Just guarantee it. But Dave, I just got to ask you, like the moment he touched on the court, did like the hairs that are no longer on your head stand up a little bit, or was there a little weird moment? Or
I'll be honest here. So I was on the Ding last night, and I had that game on the big screen, and I had the other game on the iPad, and I was focused on the iPad when he checked in, so I missed the moment. But I will say this: the Memphis Grizzlies needed an adult to be out there. I thought his timing on defense looked great. I mean, he looked like Danny Green on defense. He was rotating. He was in the right spots. The three ball. All right, it was a little rough, couple of air balls, but this guy's coming back from a major knee injury after only 265 days. I don't know if you guys realize that. Very short turnaround, especially when you're old. And his legs aren't under him yet. But if he's ready to go by the time the postseason starts, that's a huge acquisition for the Memphis Grizzlies. He's what they need if he can get healthy and provide some value on the offensive end. But defensively, I thought he looked great right away.
I just tuned that all out. That I just heard wow, 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 wow. After Dave basically said that the games don't matter, which was, threw me for a loop, but okay.
Well, his game in particular.
I see.
You know what I mean? It's just nice to see Danny Green out there running around.
Right. I understand what you mean now.
Yeah.
We all knew this was going to be a big moment for you, Dave. I'm
Huge.
actually shocked you didn't fly out. That's all. I'm a little bit disappointed.
I will say, all right. This is like just between us, me, you two, and everybody listening. I really did think about flying out because it would have been an amazing bit. But the storm, it's cold out there and they've got ice and stuff, and I'm not trying to be stuck.
You said the storm, and Seth's eyes lit up thinking you were going to talk about the rains we had in LA.
Oh yeah,
I could see Seth's eyes were like, he's already.
Listen, I'm going to Utah in a couple weeks for the All-Star game, and that's about all the cold I think I've got in me for this winter. All right, guys. So yeah, Danny Green, everyone's favorite thing this week should be Danny Green, but what do you guys got?
I'm gonna go with a oldie but a goodie. And just Jokic's passing. If you go watch that game against New Orleans the other day, like he's dropping some of these passes in a way that it's ridiculous. Michael Porter Jr. cuts backdoor on setting a screen, and he just flips a little pass just kind of over his shoulder. I mean, where the pass, which I'm 100% convinced was on purpose, off the backboard to Aaron Gordon, who ended up getting fouled on the play, so it's not even an assist, but just just Jokic's passing on this stuff where he's just doing stuff now to see if he can do it. Like the idea to throw a pass off the backboard, and I know it's not his first time, but the balls to do that in a game that was relatively close is amazing, and to do it so effortlessly is just kind of annoying and fun, and that's why it was just my favorite thing.
Are we absolutely sure it was meant to be an off the backboard pass?
Yes.
And okay.
I've looked at it more than I've looked at the Zapruder film. I've slowed it down to like frame by frame and everything. And you know, it's
okay.
I'm now convinced
because he's done it a few times.
But Seth, the thing about it is it was perfectly placed. Like the other thing that's impressive about it is Aaron Gordon was ready for it. It was almost like, oh, he's doing it now. Like he's doing the thing. And it's just amazing.
I'm ready to see him take it up a notch. When Jokic posts up, I want to see him throw an alley-oop off the backboard across the lane for Aaron Gordon. I want to see Aaron Gordon coming from the weak side corner and catching a lob off the glass. That I've been a proponent of passing off the backboard for a long time. I don't understand why it isn't a common thing at this point. I mean, when you watch the way the guys play now compared to 30 years ago, you would think that would just be something that happens. There are a few guys that use the backboard to pass, but Jokic with the high post, high wing, post entry pass off the backboard is something. Can anybody else even do it?
This all feels like a several years late protest of Aaron Gordon getting robbed of the dunk contest.
A little bit, but I feel like Luka's done that before, or tried to do off the backboard pass. But here, if Jokic really wants to blow me away, I want the elbow pass that Jason Williams did in the All-Star game. Now, if he wants to really blow me away, like if I see that one, that's it, guys. I might stop watching basketball. We've peaked.
His arms might be too long to effectively do that, to be honest with you. I think that's a short guy pass, or relatively short guy pass. All right, Seth, what's your favorite thing this week?
My favorite thing is kind of watching guys learn on the job, and a reminder that like these things that we kind of criticize are hard. There's a little thing that happened on Tuesday when the Lakers ended up beating the Knicks in overtime. Right near the end of the first half, about 3 minutes left. So we're at the fourth quarter, prime use it or lose it territory. Looked like Darvin Ham wanted to call a timeout and was telling Dennis Schroeder call it. And then he realized, oh, wait, we're just above 3 minutes. The next media timeout is theirs. So I'll lose a timeout if we call it here. But he distracted Schroeder enough that Emmanuel quickly came up behind and stole the ball, ran down for a layup. And then going to the timeout the next time, like Darvin was like, that's on me. It's my bad. And it's just like a reminder of all the things that you have to take into account, certainly as a head coach, but as a point guard, as a basketball player, and that no one knows them all instantly. Like rookie coach and rookie player, there's some similarities there. And I just, getting reminded of how much is actually going on I always enjoy.
Yeah, we tend to pay attention to the physical, and then with coaches, most of what we pay attention to is stuff that rotations, which we can debate, but also play calling, which they don't call plays all that often. Not every coach is calling plays all that often, but the game management stuff, if we were like judging coaches, the game management stuff, that the timeout usage, those are some of the big things. And it's the hardest to learn because timeouts, like when you're coming up as a coach, I never had to think about, oh, I got to take this timeout at this time because we've got a television show to produce. It's hard to learn that until you're actually doing it on the fly. So, first year coaches in particular, right? Like this is why that it's important to sit on the front row of the bench for a couple of years, because you learn the ebbs and flows of the game.
It's really important, and it actually came up on the playback stream Seth and I did the other day, where somebody just said Terry Stotts is better than Chauncey Billups, and Seth and I both immediately just said, yeah, Terry Stotts had 15 years of coaching. The job he did in Portland was the second time or third time he was a head coach. This is Chauncey Billups' first go around as a head coach, and I think we're going to dive deeper into this kind of stuff down the road, but I think the important thing that Seth said is just learning on the job is such an important thing as a coach. We give players the ability to develop and grow. It's the same thing with coaches. And I think that's kind of one of those things that gets under talked about in a way with not just coaches, but just like giving coaches chances to kind of figure it out and go through it.
Yeah. I mean, coaches get fired after 1 year. Often. Coaches win coach of the year and get fired. I mean, it's a hard job.
Yeah, I mean, one of the other is that the stuff that is most easily visible and measurable to us isn't always the most important. The other day at Dunked On, I wrote about this. I was just looking at timeouts. I was actually helping Eric Name out because he's got a story coming out soon. We talked to Bud about use it or lose it timeouts. And unsurprisingly, if you don't know, you can only carry 2 timeouts in the last 3 minutes of the game. Mike Budenholzer in his time with the Bucks has been like by some margin the guy who's like, oh well, gotta use it almost regardless of circumstances. If you were gonna like take a look at timeout usage, I think that like generally speaking, a good timeout usage is knowing that you have that there. You can get your guys rest. You can do whatever you want to do. Call that in the last minute before under 3 minutes. And some more questionable ones are, I think, in the last little bit of a game, the most important stuff is to control possession, control the clock. So using them at 2:45, 1:50, I generally think those are probably bad timeouts. Like crap, stop a run. You want that timeout much more in the last minute to advance the ball or something.
You're speaking my language.
Yeah.
I lose it every time that happens.
So the 2 coaches in the NBA who have called the most timeouts between 3 minutes and 1 minute of the fourth quarter are Ty Lue and Steve Kerr. So I don't think we would say, oh, those terrible coaches, but something we say, okay, that may be something they don't do super well. And, there's a lot of stuff that goes into that. Maybe they're challenges. Maybe those are, we're blowing them out. Let's get our guys out. So there's some, but it's by a decent margin. They call the most in that above a minute under the use it or lose it mark timeouts.
How many of those are challenges though? Because it does feel like that 3 minute to 1 minute mark. I see a lot of coaches using their challenge. Which, we've kind of talked about not on the show. I think that you should have some sort of methodology to when you're willing to challenge a call. And especially if you don't if it's not an obvious one, if your assistant that's responsible for making the call isn't quite sure, you should do it within those timeout windows that you've already established for yourself, trying to do that one right before 3 minutes, for instance, to use it or lose it is a great time to challenge a call if you have a bad call.
The example though of those 2 coaches are also 2 very veteran heavy teams where, especially Kerr can trust those guys to just run stuff and find their way. And the Clippers are the Clippers.
They're not running anything anyway.
Who knows who's on the court in those instances. But I think, but they are usually pretty heavy veteran stuff. So it's a little bit different in how they kind of operate. But it's really interesting. Like just timeout usage is such a very important thing and near and dear to my heart because I always kind of could jump up and down.
Today's show is brought to you by Chime. Visit chime.com/NBA show for more information. What's the first thing you do when you wake up? Is it checking up on your credit score? Yeah, I didn't think so. Well, at Chime, that's exactly what they do for you. With their secured Chime Credit Builder Visa credit card, you can start to build credit with your own money. Chime reports your payments to credit bureaus to help you build credit over time. Their members see an increase of 30 points on average. All of this with no annual fees, large security deposits, or credit checks to apply. So start your credit journey with Chime. Sign up, only takes 2 minutes, and doesn't affect your credit score. Get started at chime.com/NBA show. That's chime.com/NBA show. The Chime Credit Builder Visa credit card is issued by Stride Bank N.A. pursuant to a license from Visa USA Chime checking account and $200 qualifying direct deposit required to apply for the secured Chime Credit Builder Visa credit card. Regular on-time payment history can have a positive impact on your credit score. Impact to score may vary, and some user scores may not improve. Out-of-network ATM withdrawal fees may apply, except at MoneyPass ATMs, in a 7-Eleven, or any Allpoint or Visa Plus Alliance ATM. Guys, the Toronto Raptors are holding the trade market hostage. They're not taking any calls until they get back from this road trip. They've got some guys to move. I think they have guys that they have to move. Are they the only team selling right now?
Are they?
I don't know if they're selling.
Yeah, exactly.
That's it.
Not are they the only team? Are they selling? Not just are they the only team?
I will say this. They are the only team anyone is talking about as a seller. I think that there have to be a couple of other teams, but are they sellers?
I think the important thing for them is, first off, the whole trade market hinges on them. Like I could see as you said perfectly, that they're holding it hostage because teams aren't going to make a smaller trade because they might need those pieces to make a bigger trade if Toronto's willing to move a guy like OG Anunoby or something like that. I think they're in that kind of, I think they were early on in the phase of let's play this out and see what it looks like. I think it's pretty clear at this point what it looks like. And, we're going to pat ourselves on the back here. I think we were pretty early on like this stuff's, a bit screwed up and wonky. I think they should be sellers. What they're going to do, who knows? But I think they have a lot of guys that it doesn't seem like they're going to bring back. Fred VanVleet sounds like he's going to opt out. It sounds like Gary Trent Jr. is going to opt out. Those are guys I don't know if they're necessarily going to go out of their way to re-sign. And at that point, you got to make a move and move them and get something for them. Better to get something for them and lose them for nothing. But I don't think they're the only sellers, Dave, or possible sellers, we should say.
So what's the list look like then? If we're going to I'll call Toronto a seller. I think that they ought to be. Whether they are or not, we'll find out. But they are a seller in my mind. Who else? I mean, I think Utah is an obvious one, although they still are playing pretty well, and Will Hardy's doing a great job coaching them. But I think Utah's probably one, right?
I think they'd be fine moving. Like there's players they'd be fine moving. Like I think they'd probably be fine moving Malik Beasley to give Ochai Agbaji, give him more runway to develop as a rookie. I don't think they're in any necessarily rush anywhere else.
Here's the deal. They're in the best position as a seller. Cause first off, we just say buyer and seller, and we really need to tier these things up in terms of shoppers and sellers. They're the kind of seller that's maybe if something blows us away, we'll sell it. They've made it clear, I think, that Lauri Markkanen, Walker Kessler, and help me out, Seth. How did you say his name? I'm so bad at this.
Agbaji.
Apologies. Agbaji. I think those guys are for them. They're not moving, and don't call about them. They're not interested in trading them. I think everybody else is gettable depending on the price. And I just think they're in that perfect sort of situation where they could just be like, we don't have to trade these dudes. We're not eager to. You got to kill us with an offer. And I think that's going to be the thing. And I think guys like Kelly Olynyk, Malik Beasley, I think even Vanderbilt's going to all have value. I think Mike Conley's name's been floated around a ton. One name I haven't heard a lot was Jordan Clarkson. I think I wouldn't surprise me even if he gets moved, but they have pieces that other teams are going to be interested in.
I don't think we should completely rule Toronto out of that. They're not in quite the same catbird seat that Utah is, but they're you say you should get something for them. You can easily you make the wrong deal, you get a bad contract in. You might have been better off letting the guy walk for nothing. But for the other players that people are interested in, your Anunobys, your Siakams, whoever else, there's no rush. If they don't like the deal they're going to get now, it's not like those guys are going to lose trade value.
Yeah, no, but I think it gets a little more interesting. The idea of getting OG Anunoby with the year and a half on his contract and for having him this season is probably worth another first round pick versus, okay, well, we're trading him and we got to play the dance of his 1 year rental. And this, it's a little bit more stuff.
He's got more value right now than he would
because you're getting, first off, and I think it drives people nuts, but I do think he can be the finishing touch for a championship contender. I just look at him that way. And I think that's those are the teams that should be in on him. I don't think he's a guy you can start your rebuild with. I don't think he's a second piece you bring in. Looking at you, New York Knicks.
Aaron
But I
Gordon
think
to the Nuggets.
right. I think
Right.
he's that kind of finishing move. But like I think that matters more now than it would in the offseason.
There's
And
a
I
lot of there's a lot of smoke with OG in Memphis. I think that if they could somehow add him to what they have, right, to that core, that makes me feel a lot better about Memphis. I don't know how they do it without giving up Danny Green, though. So that's
Yeah, it's a tough deal for you
That's
if
a
that
tough
were to
one.
happen. But they get to return Danny Green back to where he wanted one of his millions of championships.
That's true.
You know,
it would right the ship in Toronto.
Yeah, I'm all in on him. I think that's who should be going in and should be the most aggressive going after him, because I also think he gives them insurance with the Dylan Brooks free agency at the end of this year. And I think that's an important piece. And I think this is one thing I know I've talked a lot, and I just want to end it here on this, my point on this one. These windows are never as wide or open as long as we think they are, or the hallway or whatever we were calling
Thank
it
you.
a few weeks
Yeah,
ago.
the hallway.
It's never as long as it is. And this thing shrinks so quickly. It could be it could be anything like a stupid wet spot, knock on wood. It could be anything, and I think that's an important thing to understand, that like this thing turns on you real quick. So don't waste your chances. And I think, a lot of Memphis people are like, no, we don't want to do, like, why? I'm like, nah, man, this is a move. I equate this to Drew Holiday for the Bucks. Like, this is a finishing touch move. I don't think it's as good as Drew, but I think this is that type of level of move, and you do what you have to.
And Memphis has the assets. Like that's the thing about Memphis. Like they're in a really, really great position. They've got some young guys that they can throw into a package. They do have Danny Green's salary, which, can help get them to a lot of deals. They're a team that's poised to strike if they will do it. Now, that being said, I mean, they've been struggling without Steven Adams here recently. I wonder if that might make them feel like, okay, we're not quite ready to make that kind of push. I would love to see him do it, though. Toronto is going to control the market, but there's a couple other teams that may be sellers. I mean, the Spurs have Jakob Poeltl and McDermott. He's available, from what I understand. I mean, those are guys that they're good pieces. Poeltl could be a huge piece for a contender.
Maybe. He's had a rough year.
I mean, he's on a really awful team.
But there are players who, in some of my stuff, like there are players who can show up as decent rim protectors on bad teams, and he is someone who's been a very good rim protector across his career, and he's those numbers have collapsed this year. Now, again, how much of that is the team? Some, but also he's getting a little older, not the most mobile. It doesn't take, I think we saw like the start of the year with Rudy Gobert. Doesn't take a lot of a decline in movement ability to go from getting there just in time to bother the shot to getting there just in time to foul the guy as he lays it in.
I think I'm kind of with you a little bit, Seth, and don't let Fred Katz hear you, because he will come charging at you. My problem with Poeltl is there's not a lot of teams that will give up a lot for a dude that's a 1-year rental, or not even that, like a 3-month rental. Like, he's going to command a big salary, I think, in the market. He's going to get around 20 million, dude. Like, I mean, it's
wow.
Yeah, wow, but like it's gonna happen. Like it's not, and everybody get used to these numbers going completely bonkers over the next few years. This is gonna be the case. But like, who really needs a starting center? Because like the places that need backup centers, I don't know if they're gonna give up a 1st-round pick for a dude that they're gonna lose. And it's funny considering what I just said about Memphis, but like Denver needs a backup center, but do they need one so badly that it's gonna cost them? That Jakob Poeltl playing 10 minutes or 12 minutes in the playoffs makes a big difference. Like I think that's the challenge with the Poeltl trade.
What team would be better off not taking whatever they're going to offer for Jakob Poeltl and just offer it to Minnesota for Naz Reid instead?
The Clippers.
Yeah. Look, Naz Reid is going to be a free agent this summer, and you caught the game last night. That he played Minnesota.
There was
That
a
guy-
lot of Nas Reed down
A
the
lot of
stretch
Nas
that game.
Reed.
A
Nas
lot.
Reed game winning, game sealing dunk at the end off the offensive
almost
rebound.
almost too much because off of his own miss on the corner
Yeah.
three.
He was cooking. And I think Nas Reed, I mean, that could be a game changer for a bunch of teams. What about Charlotte?
Before we go to Charlotte, there was a team that I'm, because of everything that's gone on, I am just going to throw it out from left field that could make a change directions. The Suns. Obviously, they've got the Jay Crowder. There's the new ownership situation could mean a sort of a change in direction. I don't think it would probably surprise anyone if it turned out that Monty Williams and DeAndre Ayton would be happier being as far apart from each other as possible.
You don't say.
Yeah. There's been tiny little rumblings about Chris Paul. So in terms of a team that could choose to change direction, I just want to flag them as a team that could surprise us.
I think Ayton could be had, but I think it's going to be a pretty big price, and I think it will be in that sense. And I think the other stuff, but the Chris Paul stuff, I just find it fun. Who's trading for him? Like, it's in all honesty, I know the contract's not guaranteed the next couple of years, but the guarantee date's like the draft. Like, it's you're picking him up, you're picking it up early, and who's going to give up? So first off, a lot of money to make it work. And then you have the challenges of that stuff. And I don't see the Suns willing to take that much of a step back after just being at the finals a few years ago. Like, I think you're not getting a lot back for Chris Paul. And I don't think
it's a dump.
Russell.
Yeah, you're not. No, they're not. I'm gonna slap you. So now you got bread cats coming down, and I'm coming. And you're just lucky it's cold as hell in Milwaukee. I'm gonna wait till the springtime. But like, you got to watch for that stuff. I think Ayton's more movable and can bring back more. That would be the move if I were them to take a look at.
If you were gonna reboot, I mean, what are you rebooting around Booker and Bridges? I know Cam Johnson's going to be a free agent this summer. He's going to have, people are going to toss some money his way. That's a hard reboot if you go ahead and move on from Chris Paul and move Ayton. But I think Ayton, man, he ought to get a big haul. That guy's he's a good player. I'm not sure, I think Indiana was interested in him, and now, they've locked in Miles Turner, which is great. That's a good move for them. Toronto apparently was working on a sign and trade for Ayton, so maybe there's something there. But if the Suns trade Ayton, can they replace that production? Can they make an Ayton trade and just continue to act like a contender? I just don't know. Maybe they could get Jakob Poeltl in some sort of 3-team deal or something like that.
Oh, I was actually kind of thinking Poeltl with Crowder and then a buyout. As long as the Spurs can get a pick out of it, they'd probably be happy with that.
Yeah.
That was just kind of floating in my mind in that, but that's also, I don't know how the money works or anything like that.
Today's show is brought to you by our friends at Rocket Money. Visit rocketmoney.com/NBA show for more information. Did you guys know that the average person has like 12 paid subscriptions? Think about that. If you think you've only subscribed to a handful of services, you might want to go and double check. With Rocket Money, you can quickly identify and cancel all your unwanted subscriptions. Like, that streaming service you got just to watch that one TV show, but you haven't used again? Well, with Rocket Money, you can cancel it very easily. Rocket Money, formerly known as Truebill, is a personal finance app that finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps you lower your bills all in one place. Over 80% of people have subscriptions they've just completely forgotten about. Rocket Money will quickly and easily identify the subscriptions for you so you can stop paying for the ones you don't want. Simply find the subscriptions you don't want and press cancel. Rocket Money takes care of the rest. Stop throwing your money away, cancel unwanted subscriptions, and manage your expenses the easy way by going to rocketmoney.com/NBA show. That's rocketmoney.com/NBA show. rocketmoney.com/NBA show. Well, guys, then let's talk about Charlotte. I mean, they've got a couple of guys. They've got Jalen McDaniels, who's a good young player, but he's going to be an unrestricted free agent, so he's likely available. You got Mason Plumlee, who serviceable backup big that would look good in a couple of places that they'd like to dump.
Saddest trade in the league right now
Guys,
is James Wiseman for Mason Plumlee.
This is
it
the
makes
trade
sense,
I want.
but it's so sad.
Look, throw it if they can also get Jalen McDaniels. I love that trade for the Warriors. I think McDaniels is a good player. Plumlee, he can do stuff for them coming off the bench. But that is a sad trade. What about John Collins? Is this the year that they finally trade John Collins after putting him on the trade block before he signed his extension?
So you know what my favorite John Collins, and I've spent the first half of the year trading John Collins in my mind to half the league, if not more. We mentioned Utah having a lot of kind of, I think John Collins in Utah would be really interesting. I think, who starts, I don't know. I think you have 96 good minutes at the 4 and 5, versatile minutes at the 4 and 5 with Markkanen, Kessler, Collins. And I think Utah has guys who would help Atlanta. Like, I think, Atlanta needs shooting. Malik Beasley. I think, we can argue about how good Vanderbilt actually is defensively, but I can certainly see Atlanta thinking he's pretty good. So that and some pick action and I think that's one that wouldn't not make sense to me.
Makes too much sense. Not going to happen.
Yeah.
They're not. Listen, John Collins is the new Miles Turner. That's it, man. Like, it's just every year we're going to do this. They've changed their front office. It's Landry Fields now and Kyle Korver and those guys running the show instead of Travis Schlenk. And I still don't think they're going to trade John Collins. Like, I just think every year we're going to hear more and more rumors, and he's going to be that guy for the next couple of years on this deal. And it's going to wear on him and frustrate him, I think. But I would like to see him find a new home. I just don't see it happening.
What's worse, not being traded or playing with Trae Young every day? That's what I want to know. Which one's going to drive him more nuts? John Collins is too good of a player to be sitting on the trade block without offers coming. And it makes me think Atlanta is asking for a lot.
Well, I think that comes to the problem with this trade market. Is teams are also overvaluing their guys. Everybody needs to go for a first round pick, or you know what I mean? I think we're getting a little bit wild here in some of this. Eric Gordon's been on the block for a first round pick for the past few years. Even now he's a rental at this point, and he's still on the block for a first round pick. They won't move him for anything less, as the stories and things like that. I feel like you have a lot of overvaluing of your guys sometimes. And I think that tends to happen. I think that's actually my concern in Memphis, to a degree, of them not wanting to make a run at this, is we draft so well. We want to keep the draft picks. They're valuable to us. I'm like, that won't help you win a championship. But I think that's a problem. And I think that's the case with with John Collins in Atlanta too.
You guys feel like this season, the trade, while the trade deadline may be a little bit more dead with the parity, do you feel like we may see a little bit of a wilder swing post trade deadline? So like if a team can, like Jay Crowder, for instance, if he's in Jay Crowder NBA shape, he might be a swing piece given how much parity there is in the league. Like, this is just what could be a huge acquisition. I mean, I look at Milwaukee, who could really use a little bit of depth on the wing. I think Jay Crowder, if he's able to play, that's a huge pickup. Is there any team out there that you feel like can really benefit from the trade deadline?
I don't know about Crowder specifically, but in the West, and this has been the case forever, the Clippers in 4th place in the West are 4 games ahead of the Lakers in 13th place. So, I mean, yes, I think there will be a wild swing in the standings after the trade deadline. Whether or not that has anything to do with that player actually getting traded is.
What about the Lakers? They're going to move Russ, or they're going to ride this thing out, guys?
I don't think there's a trade for them to move Russ that makes them a championship team.
Well, Chris Paul.
Not going to happen. I don't see that. I don't see, Phoenix being interested in Russ. I mean, maybe those picks are going to be really interesting in that regard and so on, but that's the setback for them. that's not like something where you're going to go, oh wow, the Suns made a move to really go for it. You talked about just how far behind, just how close the Lakers are to the Clippers. The Suns are closer. Like, why would they, and they're not even healthy when they get Devin Booker back, who's supposed to come back next week. Who knows what this team is going to be? And I think that's the challenge. I just think the Lakers are screwed.
They basically put themselves in boom bust territory at the deadline because of trading, their minor assets and matching salary and mid-sized matching salary early for Rui Hachimura. So I think that they have certainly shrunk their range of options just from a mechanical standpoint.
Well, and I mean, by not trading Russ, they're gonna just lose that salary this summer. I mean, he's gonna go somewhere else. I mean, that salary's off the books, but what do they wind up with? Something like 31 million or something in cap space if he just walks, which is enough, I guess, to improve for next year. But I still think when you're this close and you've got LeBron, I mean, LeBron's playing pretty high level basketball. You got to take a swing.
I think the concern is it's not like Russ and 2 picks gets you Pascal Siakam. It's not like Russ
Right.
and 2 picks gets you the guy that makes you a championship team. And they're Rob Pelinka has even said, does this make us a championship team or not? And they're not interested in incremental growth, because you know what? They blew it already.
Yeah, clearly they're not interested in incremental growth, given their low level signings over the year.
Yeah, I mean, like they've just screwed themselves over and over again in this. And Seth said it in terms of they just backed themselves into this position. I think I like the Hachimura deal for them. I think that's fine. I still don't think that even moves the needle for them that much, but it's just I don't see a way. And even before that trade, I just didn't see a trade out there that was going to bring them something that I'd go like, oh crap, the rest of the West better watch out, because now the Lakers got a third piece. Even if they pulled something for Fred VanVleet.
So I agree with you, but then I'm coming back to, does it matter that there probably isn't? I mean, I think there are some teams, you were talking earlier about windows. With the Lakers, I think the Blazers are a little bit like you've chosen as the Blazers that you're ride or die with Dame at this point. So, I brought up Ayton earlier. Nurkic, Josh Hart, and a couple picks for Ayton. Does that make you a championship team? Probably not. Does that give you the best team you're likely to put around Dame in like what's remaining of his late peak? Something like that. Like it's go time for them. It's go time for the Bucks. It's go time for the Lakers. Like regardless of how likely it is, like your stars are going to age out soon anyway. So with the like this 2 timelines nonsense that the Warriors tried to make popular, it is not fact.
The Warriors had that luxury of doing the 2 timelines just because they had that year where they got those draft picks and the trade and got Wiggins and the draft pick from Minnesota and all of that.
I don't think they have 2 timelines.
What's that?
I don't think they have 2 timelines. I think when Steph is not a top 5 player, they're not a championship team.
No, for sure. I'm not arguing with that, but I'm just saying more in that. I'm just saying they had a luxury of trying to do the 2 timelines in that instance. It was kind of just, it ended up they were there with that, and not so much. They weren't planning that. They would have much rather have been good that year and just had the Minnesota lottery pick with all that. But like when it comes to the Blazers, like this is another team that like, they might need to look at moving Simons. Because I'm just at the point now, like we're really doing another small backcourt with no defense again after what you just did with CJ, right? Yeah, like what are we doing? We're really doing this again? Like it doesn't make sense. And that Ayton trade, like I like it, it's interesting, but I also don't think it makes Portland that much better because again, their problem's the backcourt defensively, like it, and I think that's the stuff I look at with them, going like, what are you guys doing? And I just have a lot of questions for them.
It really like they have the offensive firepower. Like they can lose Simon and they can fill it in with a guy who can D up and maybe shoot the 3. And I think that they wind up being a better team.
Are they a better team if they swap Simons for Caruso? I don't think that's a plausible trade.
No, but I don't think so.
I think they are.
You need a guy.
I think they're better defensively. I think
you are. Yeah.
But your offense has never been their problem.
Right.
And even with Grant will help fill that void. Stuff like that. Caruso will make the occasional cut. He'll make Dame's life a little bit easier, but more importantly, he'll defend. And hey, that's going to be the key come playoff time. Like, and I know it's weird saying this after they've come off probably their biggest win of the year in Memphis this past, week, but like it's not something that I look at their future and go, wow, this team's going to be set up. They're going to tie themselves to Grant with a pretty nice contract in the offseason, and now they're just stuck.
Are the Knicks going to move Obi Toppin and Cam Reddish?
If they can move Cam Reddish, they're going to move Cam Reddish.
He's on play, right? Yeah.
I mean, like what was it? I think somebody was saying like 27 consecutive coaches' decisions, DNPs.
DNP.
If Reddish is just in that weird zone of like, man, nobody wants
future
him.
Laker, right? I mean, isn't that how that's going to work out? Well, Obi Toppin is at least an interesting guy, and he's kind of stuck behind Randall on the depth chart, right? Like he doesn't get enough minutes to really see like what he's got.
And
is he a guy that you take a flyer on if you're a team that's like could use some youth?
I mean, he's also a guy playing for a team. We've made the point about James Wiseman not being in a bad spot for making himself look good. I think there's a little bit of that with Obi Toppin. Like his best skills, especially offensively, are movement and motor. And the Knicks have a pretty stationary offense, and they don't do a lot of cutting. They don't do a lot of the kinds of like just high energy stuff that Obi Toppin is good at. So, finding him, I don't think any of us liked that draft pick at the time, but they then have also not really put him in a position to best use the talents that caused them to pick him in that spot.
I think, when I look at the Knicks, I mean, I'd love to see them move Obi. I don't think they're going to, and I'd love to see him in a place like Charlotte where he could really stretch his legs and go nuts. But I think the guy they end up moving is Isaiah Hartenstein. And I think that's the backup center a lot of teams should be looking at if they can't get Naz Reid. And I think that's a guy that can help a lot. He doesn't quite fit for Tibbs. I know he's playing more now with the injury to Mitchell Robinson, but like he just doesn't quite do it for the Knicks. I think he could be a guy like if he goes to Denver to back up Jokic, I think that's a perfect fit.
Well, it's funny you say that because I was thinking any Western Conference team that has to go through Denver should be calling about Hartenstein if they need a backup center. And if Denver can get him, because he's one guy who has done okay guarding Jokic. I like that matchup when it popped up for the Clippers the last couple of years.
I mean, are we switching to talk more about teams that have moves to make?
Sure.
You want to talk about Cleveland? The two teams kind of in different spots. I think Miami is a little more in the, all right, we're not there now, but it's now or never a little bit. And the other hand, like Cleveland, they're obvious. It's obvious what piece they are away, but they're not necessarily in a rush.
Yeah, Miami is just like, I just don't know who's gonna what they're gonna trade. Like, what are their assets? Like Kyle Lowry, like okay. Like who's really jumping? It was funny when the Clippers name was attached to Kyle Lowry. I was like, oh, they need another old point guard. Okay, good. But they're just in that tough spot with that. I'm sure they'd love to be players in this trade market, but they're the buyers that are standing outside the window and just, like, oh man, I can't afford any of this. I think that's just the spot they're in. Cleveland's interesting because Cleveland has, and I know he plays a role for them, but has that expiring in Kevin Love. And I think that's something that you might want to try to package and put some stuff together to try to fill that hole. And as we said for Memphis, like, the time is now. Like, and we did the Why Not Now pod not too long ago and mentioned Cleveland. Like, same thing. I mean, windows aren't long, or hallways aren't as long as we think. I got to keep remembering we're doing hallways and not windows. And I think that's an important aspect there. And yeah, they're playing with house money, but at the same time, like that might be the time to strike. So they have a move. And I just think if something comes along, that'll be interesting.
They have Love and they have LeVert that they are able to move. And they've got a couple picks here and there. I think that they're committed to Okoro and developing him, which, I mean, he's been pretty good, especially in the last couple months. They do have a move to make, but they don't. This is a team that if they do, like, let's say they make a big splash, is this a team that you feel like can come out of the East? I mean, what sort of guy could they get to make them? Well, okay.
No, I'll tell you what.
Anunoby is the trade deadline. That's it.
No,
this
no,
is
I'll tell you-
OG's world.
I'll tell you what that would make me actually kind of jump. I don't think it's would happen or be out there, but if they could find a way to get Dorian Finney-Smith from Dallas, like that would be the guy that's kind of perfect for them. And I think, that's something that would fit seamlessly into them. The difference between them and let's say Memphis, like if neither of these teams do anything, I'm going to be harder on Memphis than I'm going to be on Cleveland, because I think Cleveland has a little bit more runway and more trying to figure out what this team is before, whereas we know what Memphis is.
Right?
Yeah, this is the first year of their stuff, and it might be the only year. We never know. But Memphis, we know what this team is now. We've seen this team grow. We know what they need at this point, and they have the assets to go do it. So that's the stuff with them. And, like this week's podcast is going to be about what we think teams should do. And next week's podcast is going to be, why didn't you do something or
yeah.
looking at
what
who
you
did
should have
what.
done. Yeah.
What you should have done. Right. And I think that's going to be the more important thing there. And I think that's what I look at with Cleveland in this regard is like, yeah, I'd like to see them do something if it makes sense, but they're also not, I don't think have to be in that rush.
Well, seems like a good place to wrap up. You guys got anything else before we go for the week? Trade deadline specific?
Do you think Sacramento should do anything?
Man, that's tricky. That's tricky.
A good Hartenstein spot.
That would be a good Hartenstein spot. It'd be a decent Pirtle spot, to be honest with you. I think he would help them quite a bit defensively. I just don't know. Sabonis is a weird fit next to a big. So that's the thing they have to figure out.
No, I don't think I think you're thinking of who can we get when Sabonis is not in the game? Let's our backup five. Not necessarily. I think they've discovered like they're playing 5 out around him, and that's their way forward. And I don't think trying to recreate a worse version of like a Twin Towers, like getting Pirtle and expecting him to start. Like, I think that doesn't do enough for what they're bad at and completely takes away what they're good at. So that's not really where I'm thinking for them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to throw another team out there and then I'll retire to the depths of, just sitting and waiting for trades. What should the Chicago Bulls do?
Blow it up. Blow it up. Blow it up.
This might be there might not be a bigger differential between should do and will do based on the incentives of the people actually doing the doing. If that makes sense.
They didn't make my list because I don't expect them to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't expect them to do it, but
the moves they should make are basically saying, hey, everything we've done up till now was wrong. Trust us to do this right. Yeah.
Again.
And their picks lottery protected this year, right? Like, is it top 8 or something or top 4? It's not as protected as we think, but it's right. They're in a very difficult situation. And I mean, it doesn't sound like Lonzo's playing at all this year. Like it's like, what are you doing at this point?
Caruso is available. I think Zach LaVine is gettable. And that's a guy. I mean, that's a market changer.
That's a guy that gets traded in the offseason though. That's the hard trade to make in season. Mm-hmm. Like last year it worked with Ben Simmons and James Harden because we know that both wanted to get the hell out of their current situations and contract wise works. It gets tougher to do it in season with these guys. That's also why I think a guy like OG at 17, 18 million is prime, to go, and why his name keeps bouncing around. Cause it's like, that's a tradable contract. That is a contract that gets moved money wise and easier to match up with.
Yeah. Another guy we didn't mention, Christian Wood, might also be on the move, and he's been pretty good for Dallas. That's pretty decent contract that they've got there that they could float out.
What purpose does that serve? Like, what? I don't like.
Listen, it's, you tried it out.
When do we start talking about, there's been times where we've talked about the disservice organizations have done to great players in the early years of their career. How long do we have before we start talking about Dallas that way?
At least
we are talking about Dallas that way.
Yeah.
So,
well, it's
now
not a topic for this week, but probably pretty soon. And that's going to do it for this week, folks. Thank you guys for listening to the Athletic NBA Show. For Seth Partnow and Mo Dakhil, I'm Dave DeFore, and this has been Nerder. She wrote. Catch you guys next week for the trade deadline.